Color can seem overwhelming and complex. It affects how we interpret and perceive everything around us. Color is tied to the science of optics, of how we physically perceive objects in space, but there are also strong figurative connections. This includes associations we have with certain colors, which can be a powerful tool when creating and interpreting artwork. When looking at a green field, a blue house, or a red stop sign, it's important to remember that objects have no color. They simply reflect certain rays of light. Sir Isaac Newton demonstrated this property of light in the 17th century with a prism. The prism is able to break up white light into identifiable hues of the spectrum. When looking at the color of an object, for example a red fire hydrant, the object absorbs all of the rays of light except for the red ones. These rays are reflected back to the viewer. The black absorbs all of the rays in the spectrum, as white reflects all of them. As an artist, we need to know that when the light changes, so will the color of the object. Color is derived from the combination of two sources, direct light and reflective light. Photographers are more concerned with direct light, which is the light shown on the objects they are shooting. This direct light source can be the sun or lights in the studio. Visual artists tend to be more concerned with reflective light. This is the light that is reflected from objects, like the color of the paint reflected from the canvas. In this video, we're mainly going to look at reflective light and how artists use and analyze color when creating and interpreting works of art. When looking at color in our palette, or in a work of art, we can break down a color into three main components: value, saturation, and hue. Value refers to the lightness or darkness of a color. When mixing colors, adding white or black can shift a color's value. Adding white produces a tint of the color, and adding black produces a shade of a color. When working with paints and pigments, there are other ways in which we can change a color's value. For example, in watercolor, if you add more water to a color, it will make the color more transparent. This happens because the pigments of the color are diluted or pushed farther away from each other. The color will appear to be a lighter value when applied to a lighter surface, like white paper. If that same color is applied to a darker surface, it will appear darker. A color's value can also be shifted by adding other colors. For example, adding blue to a yellow will make the yellow darker in value. Later, we'll discuss examples in which value is relative. In other words, the value of a color can seem light or dark based on the value of the colors that it is next to. Saturation refers to the intensity of a color. It sometimes may also be referred to as a color's brightness. If we are talking about a color at full intensity, we are talking about that color in its pure form. For example, if we take a cadmium red right out of the tube, this is the color at its full intensity. It's most saturated. If we mix it with white, we are changing the value which was previously discussed, but we're also changing the color's saturation. The same thing happens with black. The value and saturation are both altered. We can mix black and white, creating a gray at a similar value to the color red. Now, when we add this gray to the red color, we are only altering the color's saturation. The value of both of the reds are still the same. We can also alter a color's saturation by adding a color's complement. So, if we take orange to blue, since they are opposites on the color wheel, we create a more complex gray compared to adding just black and white.